Hello and welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, hi, you are very welcome. This is Reading the Past and I'm Dr. Cat. We're back with another look at the history news headlines to mark the first Friday of the month. This time, we're looking at the headlines that caught my eye in August 2022. I'm very grateful to Opera for sponsoring this video, and I will be talking about them a bit more in a moment. As always, I will be using the description box to link the history news articles we're looking at today, in addition to any other relevant materials. We have some updates, new news, and some upcoming, recently opened and nearly closed events and exhibitions to talk about today. So many of today's headlines were sent to me on Twitter, and I am really grateful for all of the help with sourcing these items, so thank you all. However, I did have some trouble with finding lots of events or exhibitions to talk about this month, and that might be due to it being a quieter period with lots of events closing for the end of the summer. Alternatively, it's very possible that I am missing some really cool stuff. So if there are things that are happening near you, please do send them my way as well. Thank you in advance. Now, let's have a look at last month's history news headlines. Before we dive in, I want to show you something that I'm testing out with the Opera web browser that I mentioned just a moment ago. I think this might be an interesting alternative and/or addition to me simply leaving links to all of the news articles in my description box. Opera allows you to create and curate pinboards. As you can see, I have sectioned up the updates, new news and events on this History News from August pinboard. I found this a really useful way to keep track of the articles as I found them over the month, and it also allowed me to make a note of any articles that were sent to me and by whom. What I think could be interesting for us is that I can share this pinboard with you by adding a link to my description box. I think that being able to list the headline, link the article and include a picture, for example, might make this a better resource for you than simply having a list placed in the description box. Do let me know what you think. Does this work for you? Is there a way that I could arrange it to be more helpful? Another thing that you might be able to spot about this browser is that it also has a VPN. A few months ago, during another news review video, I mentioned that there was a PBS documentary on the restitution of African art that I couldn't access from my location. So many of you came to my comments to tell me to get a VPN. Well, Opera's in-browser version is free. I simply selected Americas and was able to watch the documentary at once. I will leave a link to the Opera browser at the top of my description box, and I will also link to the August History News pinboard that I've created there for you all to check out. Do let me know what you think. And now, without further ado, let's take a look at the history news updates from August 2022. Many thanks go to Maria on Twitter for providing this update on the hunt for the HMS Gatsby. Unfortunately, at this time, the Gatsby remains unlocated. The Providence Journal explains that, quote, side scan sonar, magnetometry, and sub-bottom profiling turned up a wealth of possible targets for future investigation, but a more intensive investigation of the most promising target turned up empty. Perhaps then those other targets will yield better results in this search in due course. As and when any further updates appear, I will be sure to let you know. Back in April of this year, this little manuscript by a 13-year-old Charlotte Bronte was purchased for £973,000 at auction. The buyers in this case were the charity Friends of the National Libraries. The charity has donated this manuscript to the Bronte Parsonage Museum, which is where Charlotte and her siblings grew up. This beautiful piece of literary history is, as of last month, now on public display there. Has anyone been to see it yet? Or is anyone making plans to go and see it? Do let us know your thoughts in the comments section. So many of you reached out to share this news update with me, and I want to say thank you to all of you. The Horniman Museum has said that 72 artefacts that are currently held in its collection, which were originally looted from the Kingdom of Benin in the 19th century, will now be returned to Nigeria. Nigeria's National Commission for Museums and Monuments, the NCMM, requested the return of these artefacts back in January. The Horniman has explained their decision as follows, quote, "All of their views on the future of the Benin objects were considered, alongside the provenance of the objects. The evidence is very clear that these objects were acquired through force, and external consultations supported our view that it is both moral and appropriate to return their ownership to Nigeria. The Horniman is pleased to be able to take this step, and we look forward to working with the NCMM to secure longer-term care for these precious artefacts. I am keeping my eye out for an announcement regarding the opening date for the new Edo Museum of West African Art that is being built and is set to display these returned artefacts. And as soon as I do see something, I will of course be sure to share that news. In the meantime, 26 Benin artefacts that have already been returned have been put on display at the Palace of the Marina Cotonou in Benin. I want to thank Yvonne on Twitter for sending this article my way. One visitor to this exhibition has shared his experience. According to the New York Times, Mr. Ahanhanzo Glele, a 45-year-old sculptor and one of the thousands of descendants of King Glele, said he was hopeful the artwork's return would prompt the Beninese to explore their history and artistic heritage. He is quoted as saying, "The artistic awakening of our population was switched off from the end of the 19th century to 2022. We are now waking up. Our children don't know our history. Even I, when I am asked about my own ancestors, I often don't know. I barely tell them about my art and its influences. I need to do it more." Elian Peltier reports that, quote, "More than 200,000 people have come to a free exhibition of the artworks in the Presidential Palace, with 90% of the visitors being Beninese, according to the government, which has heavily promoted the show. Children have asked their parents to bring them because they didn't want to miss what friends were discussing at school. Spiritual leaders have travelled from across the country to contemplate the ancient artefacts. Some families have lined up for half a day before they could catch a glimpse. It seems then that the value of repatriation is showing itself to be evident from the very earliest stage. Long may it continue." Those were the updates. Now it's time to check out the new news. First up, we've got another headline that was sent to me by Yvonne on Twitter. Archaeologists from the Szent István Kőrösi Museum in Hungary have reported the discovery of Bronze Age treasures during excavations performed in preparation for the construction of the M100 motorway. The treasures were found within a cemetery complex that contained a number of high-status burials. According to Heritage Daily, quote, "The team found 8 burials, with one notable burial containing the remains of a young woman no older than 20 years of age. She was buried with 38 ornate gold and bronze decorative objects, such as gold rings, torques, spiral armlets, a gold hair ring, in addition to several small ceramic pots. The researchers believe that the woman was buried with rings on each of her fingers, indicating that she was a wealthy individual who held a high social status in her community. It is thought that there are many more objects to be discovered in and around the site. Hopefully, further excavations will take place and we will learn more about them. More discoveries have been made by archaeologists working at Pompeii, including, quote, a trunk with its lid left open, a wooden dishware closet, and a 3-legged accent table topped by decorative bowls. According to the director of the site, Gabriel Zuchtragel, these finds were made during the excavation of rooms in a domus, or home, that was first unearthed in 2018. These finds have revealed precious details about the domestic environments of ordinary citizens of the city, which was destroyed in 79 CE. Indeed, there has been an increasing focus on the lives of the middle class as well as of servants and other enslaved people. Zuchtragel is quoted as saying, In the Roman Empire, there was an ample chunk of the population that struggled with their social status, and for whom daily bread was anything but a given. A vulnerable class during political crises and food shortages, but also ambitious about climbing the social ladder. The discovery and excavation of this domus and places like it allow us a glimpse into the lives of people that, for too long, have not been the focus of historical investigation, or at least not much historical investigation. Now, I haven't been able to find out whether this area is open to the public so far, or if it's planning to be open to the public in the future, or not. So if anyone knows either way, please do let us all know in the comment section. Parts of a hoard found in Herefordshire in 2015 by metal detectorists and then illegally sold on to dealers has been relocated and purchased. It is now set to go on public display at its temporary home in Hereford's Museum, Resource and Learning Centre before it will be rehoused in a new museum. Those who were responsible for finding and then illegally selling this hoard were jailed in 2019. And although some parts of it can now go on display, we are told that most of the hoard, which is valued between £3 million and £12 million, is still missing. Hopefully these items will also be relocated and then placed in the exhibition in due course too. But in the meantime, at least visitors to Hereford's Museum, Resource and Learning Centre can enjoy the items that we do have access to. I want to thank Patricia on Twitter for letting me know about this next news item. A letter sent to Harold Carter in 1934 accuses him of robbing from the tomb of Tutankhamun. The letter was sent by Sir Alan Gardner, a leading expert in linguistic history at the time, who was part of Carter's team and was tasked with translating hieroglyphs that were found in the 3,300-year-old tomb. The letter informs us that Carter gave Gardner an amulet used for offerings to the dead, assuring him that it had not come from the tomb. Gardner then showed this amulet to Rex Engelbach, who was the then British director of the Egyptian Museum in Cairo, and Gardner was dismayed to be told that it had indeed come from the tomb, as it matched the other examples, and they'd all been made from the same mould. He stated to Gardner that it was undoubtedly stolen from the tomb of Tutankhamun. Gardner wasn't happy, and he wrote to inform Carter that, quote, "I deeply regret having been placed in so awkward a position. I naturally did not tell Engelbach that I obtained the amulet from you." Carter's claims that the tomb had been looted centuries before he got there has long been the subject of sideways glances, doubt, and frankly derision. There was nothing that could actively disprove it. Now, no longer. Bob Brier is the author of this forthcoming book from Oxford University Press, which is titled Tutankhamun and the Tomb That Changed the World. Gardner's letter is one of those that will be published within this book. On Carter's robbing of the tomb, Brier explains, quote, "They were suspected of having broken into the tomb before its official opening, taking out artefacts, including jewellery, sold after their respective deaths. It's been known that Carter somehow had items, and people have suspected that he might have helped himself. But these letters are dead proof. He certainly never admitted it. We don't have any official denial. But he was locked out of the tomb for a while by the Egyptian government. There was a lot of bad feeling, and they thought he was stealing things. The Egyptian authorities had entered and inspected tomb number 4, which Carter and the team had used for storage of antiquities, and discovered a beautiful life-size wooden head of Tutankhamun as a youth. It had been packed in a Fortnum and Mason crate, but it had never been mentioned in Carter's records of the finds, nor in the volume describing the contents of the antechamber. Carter argued that it had simply been discovered in the rubble in the descending passage. Later, we do find objects on the Egyptian antiquities market from his estate that clearly came from the tomb. I have to wonder just how many items that were stolen from this tomb are still in private hands and yet to be reclaimed and returned to their rightful place. Thanks go once again to Yvonne on Twitter for sharing this discovery of a prehistoric grave containing 169 rings in Romania. We have here another find that was made during construction works for a new road. In this case, it is the construction of the A3 highway. The grave in question holds the remains of a woman who lived during the Neolithic or Copper Age, which was between 4500 and 4000 BCE. She was buried with 169 gold rings adorning her hair, along with a multi-spiral copper bracelet, 2 golden beads, and around 800 beads made from bone. More information may well be forthcoming, as samples have been sent to labs where they will undergo carbon-14 analysis, which should give a more accurate date for the finds. There will also be DNA sampling and further anthropological investigation. And when we learn about these results, I will of course be sure to pass them on. 25 coins, which are over 1,170 years old and depict King Burgred of Mercia, have been uncovered at a metal detecting event in Warwickshire. The event was organised by a company called Go Detecting. It is thought that the site on which these coins were found was once an early medieval settlement. The cash in question could be worth more than £25,000. A coroner will now need to determine if the finds are treasure or not. If they are deemed to be treasure, then a museum will be given the chance to buy the coins. If they are found to not be treasure, then they will be returned to the finders. I wonder, if you had found these coins, which would you be hoping for as an outcome? That you'd found treasure and you could go and see it in a museum, or that you hadn't and you get to hold on to the things that you'd found? Do let us all know. The remains of more than 100 Moriori ancestors that were exhumed and traded as curiosities centuries ago by those colonising Aotearoa as New Zealand, which subsequently and for more than a century have been held in the Natural History Museum in London, are being repatriated. Last month, 111 Moriori and 2 Maori ancestral remains were ceremonially returned to Aotearoa and to their people. According to the reports in The Guardian, quote, "The remains will be temporarily held in a wahi tapu, a sacred resting site, before they are taken back to their rightful resting place on Rekoho." Alongside this return, nearly 200 karapuna, which is the term for ancestral remains in the Moriori dialect, from 5 domestic museums and universities have also been returned, in what is the largest internal repatriation. Human remains from across the world remain in the possession of various museums and other institutions, and in many cases, their repatriation is also being called for by their communities and their descendants. As more of these calls are being responded to, I will provide updates on the outcomes. I was sent this news item by Robert on Twitter. It is now a requirement in New York for museums to acknowledge artworks that were stolen from Jewish people by the Nazis. Crucially, the law extends the definition of this kind of theft to include forced sales of art. It is also specified that this acknowledgement should include the piece being accompanied by a prominently placed placard or other form of signage with details of its provenance. Now, if anyone lives in New York, or indeed is planning a trip there, do let us know when you see the effects of this legal change in the galleries that you're visiting. I'd love to know how individual museums are choosing to respond to this legal change. Thanks to Laurie on Twitter for letting me know about the Getty Museum's decision to return a collection of artefacts to Italy, all of which have now been determined to have been illegally taken from there originally. The items set to be repatriated include a life-size terracotta sculpture of a group of Orpheus and the Sirens that was created between 350 and 300 BCE, an Etruscan bronze Thymiaterion, which dates from 350 to 325 BCE, a marble head known as the Colossal Head of Divinity from the 2nd century CE, a stone mould for casting pendants, again from the 2nd century CE, and a colourful canvas oil painting from Camillo Miola entitled The Oracle at Delphi, which dates to 1881. I have so far been unable to locate any information on when this theft from Italy is believed to have occurred, or indeed who may have been responsible for it. But perhaps that will all be disclosed at some point soon. Thanks to Jane on Twitter for sending this my way. The Asian Civilizations Museum, or ACM, in Singapore has responded to a decades-old allegation that a Nepalese artefact in their collection was in fact stolen. The ACM assert that the religious artwork that depicts the Hindu deity Shiva was acquired through the National Heritage Board's established procedures. However, the museum apparently did not reply to questions on how the artwork had been obtained or at what cost. Additionally, this museum has, in the past, had dealings with the now disgraced art dealer Subhash Kapoor, having purchased items from him that were subsequently found to have been looted and smuggled. In 2015, this museum returned an 11th century bronze sculpture depicting another Hindu goddess to Indian authorities after a series of discussions between the National Heritage Board and the Archaeological Survey of India. Of course, that doesn't mean that this other sacred work is also stolen and smuggled, and indeed, I'm not really sure what the next steps would be for the Nepalese authorities if they do wish to challenge this claim by the museum. But if and or when there is any update, I will certainly pass it on. Archaeologists excavating Dawston Hill in Herefordshire, England, have found evidence that suggests that early Neolithic people used rock crystals to mark burial sites. Heritage Daily reports that, quote, "The site is a unique complex consisting of timber halls, burial mounds and enclosures that date from the early Neolithic period 6,000 years ago. The rock crystals found at Dawston Hill are a rare type of transparent quartz which forms in large hexagonal gems. They have been knapped and were intentionally deposited within the burial mounds. Experts believe that the crystal material was placed at the site over many generations, potentially for up to 300 years. There are very few places in the British Isles where these crystals are found in such a high level of purity, the closest being Snowdonia in North Wales and St David's Head in southwest Wales. This means that the prehistoric people living around Dawston Hill must have carried the material across large distances to reach the site. Were these rock crystals perhaps doing something similar to the flowers, coins and or pebbles that are frequently placed at grave sites today? Do they similarly act as a sign that someone is remembered and still visited? Because it certainly seems to me that this practice has a long history. An historian working on a book about Galileo has cast doubts on the authenticity of two separate documents that were formerly said to have been produced by him in the 17th century. Georgia State University historian Nick Wilding is apparently the first to have noticed some suspicious aspects in regard to a supposed Galileo manuscript that is held in the University of Michigan's library. This manuscript is of particular interest because it was once thought to have been among the first pieces, quote, of observational data that showed objects orbiting a body other than the Earth. In essence, this is a document that shows Galileo's working. Wilding, however, was confused to discover that there was no record of this particular manuscript in Italian archives. And additionally, even though the two sections of this letter were supposed to have been written months apart, the ink, Wilding noticed, appears to be consistent across both. This document has now been recognised as a 20th century forgery. But Wilding has gone on to cast similar doubts on another apparent Galileo manuscript, this one held by the Morgan Library Museum in New York. The Morgan is clearly so compelled by Wilding's argument that they have announced they will be changing the description that is attached to this document in their catalogue to represent and reflect what Wilding has found. However, I can only imagine that other museums, libraries and institutions with historically important manuscripts are dreading the day that Wilding knocks on their door. Many thanks go to Norman on Twitter for sending this article my way. It's about a seeming impasse that has been reached with regards to the alleged theft of certain Cambodian artefacts. 33 of which have now, according to Cambodian officials, been located in the Met. According to the New York Times, quote, "The Met has refused to show Cambodia a set of internal documents that might buttress or undermine the museum's proper title to the objects, whose slim ownership histories are listed on the Met website." The Cambodian officials, meanwhile, have turned evidence of looting over to the federal authorities, but not to the museum itself. The Met claims to have requested to see any evidence demonstrating the works were stolen from Cambodia. However, Bradley Gordon, who is a lawyer for Cambodia's government, responded with the following: "The burden of proof should be on the Met to prove the Met has the right to legally own Cambodia's national treasures." I do wonder where you are all going to stand on this as a potential argument. Either way, with this all in mind, I do think there's going to be some way to go before any potential repatriation or discussion of repatriation might be able to take place. But of course, I will be sure to report back on any developments as they arise. Last month, Glasgow Life, which is the charity that manages that Scottish city's museum collections, took part in a ceremony that transferred ownership and repatriated 7 sacred Indian cultural artefacts that were once looted from temples and shrines. They were then illegally purchased and eventually gifted into Glasgow's museum collections. According to reports, this is part of a much larger project of repatriation. Indeed, Glasgow is planning the return of 51 items to the descendants of their rightful owners from India and Nigeria, as well as the Cheyenne River and Oglala Sioux tribes in the US state of South Dakota. Once again, I have Yvonne on Twitter to thank for sending me another news item. From the Arch newspaper last month, we learned that, quote, "Egypt's high-profile archaeologist and former antiquities minister, Zahi Hawass, is on the campaign trail yet again, announcing a new offensive to bring the Rosetta Stone back to its homeland from the British Museum." The Rosetta Stone, which dates to 196 BCE, was found in Memphis, Egypt, in 1799 by a French military officer. 2 years later, it was seized by British forces in Alexandria and shipped to England. In 1802, the stele, which enabled hieroglyphics to be deciphered, was given to the British Museum. I'm sure this won't surprise people, but bearing this in mind, I do struggle to see how this can be claimed to be anything other than a stolen artefact. But I digress, and let's continue on. Because Howard has also called for the return of the bust of Nefertiti, which is currently housed in Berlin's Neues Museum, and also the Dendera zodiac ceiling, which is currently housed in Paris at the Louvre. Another thing about this that I'm sure will surprise absolutely no one to learn is that the British Museum is not rushing to honour this request for repatriation. Instead, their spokesperson has stated that, quote, "At the British Museum, visitors can see the Rosetta Stone alongside other pharaonic temple monuments, and also within the broader context of other ancient cultures, including their contemporaries, such as Rome, Athens and Persia, allowing the public to explore this vast arc of history. As with all of the collection, the Rosetta Stone is available to all interested audiences, whether in the galleries or via appointment to support academic research. We also engage widely with people all over the world via our website, alongside 3D scans of objects on our Sketchfab site, which includes the Rosetta Stone." Well, that's good news, isn't it? And more good news follows, because for any interested parties that can afford both the time and money to travel and potentially stay in London, one of the most expensive cities on earth, the Rosetta Stone will be on display in the upcoming exhibition that's titled Hieroglyphs, Unlocking Ancient Egypt, and that's going to open on the 13th of October 2022 and close on the 19th of February 2023. I'm grateful to Melissa for sharing this with me on Twitter. Dinosaur footprints, dating back over 113 million years, have been revealed by the drought conditions that have led to the shrinking of the Paluxy River. Jeff Davis, park superintendent for the Dinosaur Valley State Park near Fort Worth, Texas, said the tracks are possibly the longest extant tracks made by a single dinosaur in North America. When the rain comes, these tracks will be covered over once again. The river will then fill them with silt and sediment, which will both hide and, fortunately, preserve them. Last but by no means least, for our new news for August, I want to thank Nate Lyons on Twitter for letting me know about the seizure of an around 3,000-year-old Egyptian artefact by federal agents in Tennessee. The artefact in question arrived from Europe last month, and it was accompanied by paperwork that claimed that it was just over 100 years old. It was destined for a private buyer in the US. However, Customs and Border Protection officers consulted with experts from the University of Memphis Institute of Egyptian Art and Archaeology, who determined that it was far older than the paperwork claimed and was in fact being smuggled. The item is now being listed as an, quote, Egyptian canopic jar lid of the funeral deity named Imseti. It is believed to have been made between 1069 BCE and 653 BCE. It is, I believe, still in the possession of Homeland Security investigations, who are continuing to look into it, presumably to see if any criminal charges can be brought in relation to it. That's all I have for the new news. So now it's time to take a look at the events and exhibitions that caught my eye last month. I mentioned this exhibition back when it opened in May, and this is now your final call for it, because the British Museum's Feminine Power, the Divine to the Demonic will be closing on the 25th of September 2022. This exhibition seeks to offer, quote, a cross-cultural look at the profound influence of female spiritual beings within global religion and faith, bringing together sculptures, sacred objects and artworks from the ancient world to today and from 6 continents. The exhibition highlights the many faces of feminine power: ferocious, beautiful, creative or hell-bent, and its seismic influence throughout time. For those of you who are in or have plans to go to Paris, you still have a little more time to check out the Golden Age of the Portuguese Renaissance exhibition at the Louvre before that closes on the 10th of October 2022. According to the website, this exhibition is the first opportunity for visitors to the Louvre to discover the elegant and accomplished art of the painters who were active in Lisbon in the first half of the 16th century. Capital of the vast Portuguese Empire, Lisbon was then a multicultural city, turned towards the ocean, which carried wealth and discoveries from the New World into Europe. This exhibition pays tribute to this extraordinary synthesis of Flemish and Italian Renaissance creativity and Portuguese culture. To avoid disappointment, it should be noted that this exhibition room will be closed on Wednesdays. For my friends in Los Angeles, you have just a few days left to check out the Fantasy of the Middle Ages at the Getty Center, because that exhibition will be closing on the 11th of September 2022. I am still loving the exhibition book, by the way. However, while I was checking out just when this exhibition was going to close, I did spot another exhibition that I would also definitely be going to if I was going to be in and around LA between now and the 8th of January 2023. Reinventing the Americas, Construct, Erase, Repeat, we are told, analyses representations of the Americas, questioning the mythologies and utopian visions that proliferated after the arrival of Europeans to the continent. If anyone does make it down to this one, do let me know what you thought of it. Next up, we have advanced warning for an exhibition that is due to open on the 10th of October 2022 at the Met Fifth Avenue. The Tudors, Art and Majesty in Renaissance England, is, we are told, determined to trace the transformation of the arts under their rule through more than 100 objects, including iconic portraits, spectacular tapestries, manuscripts, sculpture and armour, from both the museum's collection and also from international lenders. This exhibition is due to run until the 8th of January 2023. Finally, we have news about the Donatello exhibition that recently closed in Florence in preparation to go on tour. We have covered this exhibition in previous news episodes, and it has just opened, today in fact, at the next stop on its tour. The Gemäude Gallery in Berlin will host Donatello, founder of the Renaissance, from the 2nd of September 2022 until the 8th of January 2023. And the next stop will be at the Victoria and Albert Museum in London. Donatello, Sculpting the Renaissance, will open there on the 11th of February 2023. So what do you think of any or all of the headlines we've looked at today? Were there any headlines that caught your eye in August that I didn't discuss in this video? What about any exhibitions or events that you may have spotted? As always, I'm looking forward to reading your conversations in the comments section underneath this video, or you can come and find me elsewhere on social media. I will leave links to all of the other places you can find me on the internet in my description box, so do consider following me over on some or all of those so we can continue this conversation and start some others. I do hope you enjoyed this video and found it useful. If you did, please consider sharing it with your friends. Please also let me know you liked it by hitting the thumbs up, and please do subscribe to the channel. If you think you are subscribed, just have a little check now while we've got time. Just make sure that YouTube hasn't mysteriously unsubscribed you against your will. And while you're there, checking, subscribing, maybe resubscribing, please also hit the bell icon that sits beside the subscribe button and then select all in the drop down that will appear so that YouTube will tell you when I've next uploaded. I do hope you're going to have a great day, whatever you're doing, and I look forward to speaking to you all in my next video. Take care of yourselves. Bye-bye for now.